mindfulness.
Welcome. Get ready for Sunshine and Dad, where you'll be encouraged, enlightened, and empowered by your hosts, Mansfield Frazier, and me, Ashley Smith.
Mindfulness. What we talking about is mindfulness.
Welcome to Sunshine and Dad. I am Sunshine, or Ashley Smith. And this handsome gentleman next to me is my new dad, Mansfield Frazier. How you doing today, Dad?
I'm great. How are you, honey?
I'm doing okay. I call him my new dad because we just met this past November.
Yes.
And if you're interested in hearing more about that story, check out our first podcast where we talk about how we met.
How you found me on DNA.
Yes.
And
yes.
changed both of our lives.
Being the resourceful person that I am.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you're wondering about the wine behind us, it's because we are recording in our vineyard and winery, Chateau Huff, on 66 and Huff in Cleveland. So make sure you like us on Facebook, Instagram. That's a shameless plug for the winery.
And come down and enjoy some wine.
Yes. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about reparations. We have a special guest. We have Erin McCardle from Reparations Now Cleveland, who's going to be speaking with us today about reparations. Are you there, Erin? Hey, Erin, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Hi, welcome. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Can you tell the cyber world what it is that you do exactly in your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the founder and also a member of the steering committee for Reparations Now Cleveland. And what we do as an organization is coordinate direct person-to-person, business-to-business, family-to-family reparative solutions within the Northeast Ohio community, and also work very first and foremost on relationship repair and community building, and understanding that that takes a lot of time and trust and a lot of relinquishing of privileges.
Awesome. How did this come about exactly?
Well, for me, it's actually something I've been talking about for a few years now and haven't known exactly how to dive in like a collective fashion. So I've just been organizing some reparative justice within my immediate community via text messages and emails and stuff like that. But in this really unprecedented time, I think that, you know, I was doing a call out for one of those things that I was organizing and just got a response that was completely different than any other response I've ever received from the white network that I reach out to for this work. So I knew that it was.
Are you concerned that using the term reparations, which has a very succinct meaning, gets a bit of confusion in to a novice or to someone, you know, particularly in the Black community, it has number one, it can be considered a loaded phrase, a loaded word. I've been writing reparations for over 25 years now. And can it be, and yours is restorative justice to a degree, improving relationships, but yours is, the average person thinks about reparations is, give me a check.
Right.
Is there some fear of confusion?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that, you know, it's the onus is on us to remain really open to change and understand that, you know, dynamics and language choices may have to be altered. But also it's the onus is on us to make sure that we're educating around like the true root meaning of this word, which is repair for wrongs done. And so we kind of break down a little bit, particularly in our personal statement, the specific wrongs that we're talking about, where we're not necessarily talking about reparations for enslavement of African peoples or genocide of Indigenous peoples. We're really talking about owning the benefit that we receive from those realities and then repairing for the wrongs that we personally have done and continue to do. So yeah, I agree that it's a loaded word and that it can be muddy, especially because it has exclusively monetary association and also exclusively like government association.
Yeah, and you know, and I kind of get it. Like you're dealing with the end of white privilege is one of your goals. I'm assuming. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's saying that, unearned generational wealth is going to stop here and now with us. And the way that we do that is redistribute and organize others around redistribution.
So how exactly do you do that? How do you redistribute? How does your system work?
So right now, the system that we have in place, and I'll reiterate that we're definitely a young organization, and so staying dynamic in the way that we navigate these things and understanding that there'll be shifts and changes based on the needs. But right now, we basically operate off of any request that comes in. So a request comes in, and then we amplify that request on our networks. There's like a public Google Doc that can be viewed by anyone. We protect the anonymity of the requester and just list the actual request. And then we organize non-Black and non-Indigenous people in the community around that request to see if there are resources available to fill it. And then we also partner with businesses, organizations, and hopefully larger pockets.
Could you give an example of when you say a request? This is, I'm assuming, from a minority business or individual or company?
Yeah, so we specify that requesters are Black or Indigenous people within Northeast Ohio.
And can you give an example of what that request would be like? Have you gotten any requests at this point?
Yeah, so we have a lot of requests and have been able to fulfill many of them, and are kind of restructuring a little bit to make sure that we can meet a growing need and larger capacity. So some examples would be landscaping. So someone makes a request like, I need some landscaping in the front of my house. So then we find somebody who has landscaping resources, and then they go and take care of the landscaping. Another example would be a website update or website building. Once again, a lot of these like technology skills are gained via privilege. And so being able to say, all right, well, we can send somebody to help you build your website. And then also, right now, in this time of a pandemic, a lot of the requests that we've been receiving have been mutual aid based, things that are more urgent, rent, utilities, school supplies, food, So that's kind of why we're also looking at how we can collaborate with other organizations that are focused on mutual aid, and kind of stay on mission while still meeting the need of the community.
We could fit in that category. We need white people to come buy wine. We do.
Yeah.
We're struggling in the pandemic, and we thought that we would have more white people coming purchasing our products. But a lot of white people are afraid to even come to Huff. So
We do ship though.
yeah, we do ship. We deliver around the city and we ship. But and what I'm saying is purchasing at Black businesses. That's a form of strengthening Black communities.
And you guys do promote that though, right, Erin? I think I've seen on your social media where they do support and promote Black business. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have lots more initiatives coming up, but one of the first initiatives that we did was self-care packages for Black revolutionaries, obviously in a really traumatizing time right now. So we were focused on all kinds of self-care items depending on what the individual person was requesting. As you might imagine, a bottle of wine was on a lot of those lists. So we were, really excited to be able to purchase from Chateau Huff, and then many other Black-owned businesses, and then amplify those businesses not only through the care package itself, but also via our social networks. And then we also have a partners page on our website where we have the logo and website of each of those businesses, and also encourage non-Black or Indigenous owned businesses to join those who have made business offerings.
Is there a concern on your part about this being perceived as welfare, another form of welfare? The old notion of teach a person to fish, they'll eat forever. You can give them a fish or you can teach them to fish. And so is there a concern about that?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, that the current status of things is is heavy in the like rent and utility assistance sector. And, as white organizers, it's not really our place to like dictate or offer too much pushback on requests that are coming to us. We just say, you've defined your needs and now we're going to go organize around those needs. But yeah, reparations do come in many different forms. And so we are going to be gearing a little more towards exactly what you're talking about, which is how do we provide skill shares? How do we provide sustainable infrastructure, as opposed to like, offering somebody rent assistance for 1 month is awesome. And if we can do that, we would like to, but it's not really a sustainable way of repairing communities and redistributing wealth over generations. It's just 1 month's rent,
Yeah, because the next month they're gonna need rent again.
Exactly. That's the
Unless
problem.
they figure out a way to.
Now, do you, the term woke is currently in vogue, and it means that people say, oh, I'm woke now, I get it. Do you work in the white community to try to change the thinking of white people? Because that's what's going to happen if you're going to change the systemic and long-standing 400-year-old problem. We in the Black community already know what the problem is.
Right.
We've been living it. And, I like to say we know white people very well. We've had to learn them. They've never had to learn us. Do you, as part of your mission to change the mindset or the perceptions or the attitudes, and particularly the actions of whites and white organizations? For instance, membership on boards of foundations or a bank. The problem in the Black community, we're struggling with it now, is that these Black builders can't get access to capital. And that's been historic. And the reason that it hasn't been challenged is because there's no people of color or very few people of color on the board of the bank. Same thing with bonding. Builders have to have bonding capacity before they can take on a project. So those are the systemic things that keep us locked out. And without changing those kind of systems and, institutionalized problems, the fear is you'll always be having to help the person pay their rent.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly our goal as an organization. Right now we're still young, and like I said, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's, great need that we're looking to figure out how to balance that reality of what you're talking about is investing in futures, investing in long-term and long-standing systemic change. But in terms of, changing minds and education, we had an awesome volunteer training this past weekend. Actually, we were able to train almost 50 people, and our community accountability partner, who is an anti-racism educator and activist, was able to host that training and offer some really phenomenal information, and also kind of set the precedent for exactly what you're talking about, which is that needs to be such a priority, that we need to be, gathering and deconditioning, unconditioning, unlearning, and then starting anew. For sure.
So you say you had about 50 people in training?
Yeah, this past weekend we were able to train about 50 people, and we'll have a lot more trainings going forward.
Now, I'm assuming these were 50 white people.
Yes, there were a couple people of color who were welcomed into the training free of charge. We talked about the history of reparations. We talked about how we're defining reparations, what that means, how we're organizing, what we do as an organization. And then Leek spent a lot of time in the training talking about anti-racism advocacy.
Because on my Facebook page, I do get some comments sometimes about people wishing that they could get more information similar to what you're talking about. So if somebody wanted to become part of it, you have these regular trainings. How much is the training? The
trainings are $25, but we also understand that it's the middle of a pandemic for everyone. So we do get some sponsored spots. Obviously it's crucial that we pay Black educators for the work they're putting in. So if a Black educator is leading the training will not be free unless the educator is willing to offer free spots to people of color, which we were able to do this weekend. But yeah, for most trainings, that'll be the average cost, and people can get involved in education, particularly white folks who want to get involved being educated. They can go to our website. There's a take action page and a volunteer form. And that's right now the way we have to connect into those trainings. And it's necessary to go through these trainings in order to become a volunteer within the network.
And what is your website?
It's reparationsnowcleveland.com.
And do you have a training coming up, or it hasn't been scheduled yet?
Our next one will be the first weekend of September. And then we'll kind of probably have more of a extended curriculum beyond just volunteer trainings for like continued education within the community.
And how do you select the trainers? Or who trains the trainers?
Who trains the trainers? Great question. So right now we have one community accountability partner, but are looking to expand that network. And that community accountability partner is a longtime anti-racism advocate and educator, and has been trained by, I'm sure, many, many sources over many, many years. So she's very qualified and has conducted these type of trainings in businesses, communities, organizations. But in terms of moving forward with additional people, we're certainly looking for other Black and Indigenous folks to be compensated for their time to not only do the things that bring them excitement and joy in the work, but also see the ways in which there might be some mess that they can say, hey, this needs to be fixed. So yeah, we're looking to expand in that way as well.
Well, there's so much need to be fixed. We'll never, and not in my lifetime, unfortunately, we won't run out of things to fix. And some of them are macro issues that, to take money, take government intervention, take government doing, actually paying for the hundreds of years of free labor. When you talk about training the trainers that you use, do they change, or is it the same person doing the training? And I'm assuming that this person that you spoke of this last training was a person of color.
Yes, yeah, it was a Black educator who is also our current community accountability partner. So their role is not to hold us accountable, because we hold ourselves accountable, but to name things that don't feel on mission, or name things or messy, actions that maybe our whiteness is blocking us from seeing. And so then we can hold ourselves accountable to those mistakes and then move forward to rectify them. But like I said, we're looking to expand and have more trainers in the future. But right now, that's our primary educator.
One of the things that's been on my mind since George Floyd's death and this awakening, this reckoning, is that how do Blacks prepare themselves to take advantage of this new climate, if indeed it's going to be sustained? Because we've seen throughout the history of America where incidents happen and it's okay, we got it now. And then things go right back to where they were without very little change, because there's another side that wants to maintain the status quo. So to my mind, and I think this one, and then you add the pandemic to it, probably has more genuine energy surrounding it since the civil rights movement. And I know I deal with some people of color, who are very leery of anything changing. And I can understand that. Their life experiences tell them to be leery because they haven't seen much change. But change is two parts. the door has to be opened, but also the people have to be ready to go through the door to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves. Or have you thought about any of that kind of training to get people ready to take it? If you open a door, how do you get people ready to go through it? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I mean, you know, of course, there's a strong distrust of this current awakening, because there's never been a time in history when white people have collectively stood up against racism. It just has never happened. And so, yeah, there's not a lot of faith that we can or will. And, you know, a lot of the systems of oppression are very intentional, created with, you know, extreme power and planning from the top. But to answer your question, yes, I think that that type of education and training is absolutely crucial. I think that it's a lifelong journey. It's hard work. It's everyday work. And we encourage everyone who's a part of our network to do that work individually. And then we look forward to being able to sustain more educational opportunities to do that work collectively as well.
So with all the great work that you're doing, you must have some pushback. I know not too long ago, you guys posted about receiving some violent, messages to your social networks. Is that still happening or has it subsided?
Yeah, honestly, less than I anticipated it happening, to be honest. I think that, the internet is a great, vast place that everybody has access to, or most people have access to. And so I think we're going to constantly receive pushback. Ironically enough, yeah, the post that you were talking about was, I think, mostly organized by one person who just went into every single comment section of every single post and started saying just harmful things. And then when we blocked that person, I think they just sent all their buddies to do the same thing. But ironically enough, we've also got some pushback for a post we made recently that was defensiveness is a tool of white supremacy. And so that brought out a lot of defensiveness for many people, ironically enough. So yeah, I think it's always going to happen, and we just need to make sure that we are honest and transparent and have protocol in place to manage it.
Well, one of the measures of success, of your success, is the negative pushback you get. If you don't get negative pushback, then I guarantee you're not doing something right. You're not being a threat to them. That they don't view you as an organization that's going to bring about change, because I would say 1/3 of the majority culture in America are satisfied with the way things are. And the whole thing of racism, all of it beginning to end, was about money. This is all about money.
Mm-hmm.
In slavery, only about money. They made it about race to perpetuate it and to make it easier to keep it going. And then, color was brought into it, but initially it wasn't color. Actually, original slavery was about Christianity, that you couldn't enslave other Christians. You can enslave them because they were heathens. That was the root of slavery. Then color was brought into it because these darker skinned, these Africans, were mingling too much with whites who had came to this country as indentured servants. And that was a fear that they would form an alignment. And so to make the indentured servants feel better about themselves, about being poor, well, at least you're not Black. And so all of this was a calculated design to extract wealth from people. And that's still, but actually the wealth part is not the real fear anymore. What it left was something, once emancipation came along, we changed the law, but we couldn't change the mindset that had been created that made it color-based. And that's the hard part that's going to have to be overcome, that there's still, there's a fear that if I, as a Black person, gained something, some white person lost something, that my gain took something. They see Black achievement as a zero-sum game. If Blacks win, we lose. And it's not. There's enough pie to go around. The pie is big enough, and if it's not, bigger pie. There's no shortage of money in this country. No shortage of resources. They will tell you that there are, but there really isn't. It's just a matter of where we allocate them, and then it's just a matter of will. So knowing that, you know, you're going to be called a race traitor, you know that, right?
I will happily accept that.
Yeah,
I'm a race traitor to the system of whiteness. I will wear it on a shirt.
Actually, that was the title of a book that was written. I read it over 25 years ago and was entitled Race Traitor. It was written by a white guy. He said, being a traitor to whiteness is in service to humanity, or something like that. Yeah. And I think the book still might be available on the internet, but he admittedly and proudly said, I'm a race traitor, that I am a traitor to whiteness, because that's what they do to keep, they throw around loaded terms to keep people in line. And actually, it's all a myth. There is no scientific basis for race. It's a cultural base, actually cultural economic, but there is no, if you look at scientifically, race is something that was created to serve a purpose. And it's done it very, very well. And that's why I'm afraid that the educational level of Americans, the intelligence level of Americans is not quite high enough to solve the problem. And in the COVID pandemic is actually proving that. The rest of the world is lowering their figures, but the United States, we have the best, arguably the best post-secondary education system in the world, but we have the highest numbers.
Because we're selfish.
No, it was stupid. We're stupidly selfish.
Both.
Yeah, pardon?
I said, yeah, both.
Well, and the whole notion of American exceptionalism plays into it. That we're an exceptional people. We don't have to follow the laws, and nobody can tell us what to do. And who the government tell me I have to wear a mask? And and I'm not going to get it. Somebody else might die. If it's a majority of Black people dying or majority of elderly people, just thinning the herd in their mind. So, but I'm saying that the fact that they're not, there's a segment of white society that are so stupid, they're like lemmings running off of a cliff following a president, that they won't even protect their own health or their children's health by, wanting to start school. They don't know if it's safe, but because the president tells them. But my point is, if they're that careless with their own health, their own safety, their own security, what the hell do they care about me? That's a question.
I mean, to be frank, they probably don't. And I think that the sort of stupidity and selfishness that you're talking about is the institution of whiteness. It is, the institution of whiteness permeates all of us everywhere all the time. White supremacy is completely insidious. And one of the tools of white supremacy is our belief that we're right, that we're definitely right. We for sure know all the things, and we got to figure out. You know what I mean?
Fuck science. Science ain't got nothing to do with this. No, for real.
Absolutely.
I have to say, I don't know another way to say it. We're the most and again, we have by far the best post-secondary education system in the world. And there's a strain of anti-intellectualism that runs so deep in American culture that we don't like, they for a while they call them pointy head intellectuals. They named them that back in the 60s. These people who are trying to tell us that there's something wrong with the way we live. They're trying to protect a way of life, and you're right. And I call it willful blindness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that they're willfully blind. And that's the scary part. And that's why I'm questioning: will this woke culture? How far will white people be willing to go? White people of good conscience, the ones that you're trying to bring into the conversation, really, how far are they willing to go? Are they willing to be called race traitors? Are they willing to give up white privilege? Are they willing to, move next door to a black person?
Do you think that the strides that have been made in Asheville, North Carolina, do you think that, it'll gain momentum in other
There's
cities?
always, and I haven't followed it that closely, but I've been interested in it, but it's,
well, it appears there are other cities that are following
that are trying to adopt it, and and don't get me wrong, I think the majority of whites are of good conscience and are not racist in their daily activities. They don't know the extent that racism has permeated their thinking. That's what being woke is about. Say, oh, now I get what white privilege is. I didn't realize I had it. So you know how I'm going to judge it? By wine sales. I have I got a real simple way of saying, hey, I'm here, y'all coming buy some wine from us to help us, because we have a social mission. But I'm being facetious, but only partly so, because that's a judgment of how of other things that go on in our society. How well are they? What's the criteria? How do we know we're winning in this? Other than people saying we woke. Now, like you said, tell us more. People, when you say Asheville, a lot of people don't know what they're doing down there. Explain that.
Well, Asheville provided a fund for their Black residents who are looking for new homes or need help with their businesses. So right now, that's the extent of it. You can receive these funds if you're looking to buy a home or if you're looking to start a business.
Well, and that's a concrete start, because what we're sitting in, what you're seeing, our business is partially due to generational wealth. We get funding from foundations, we're a nonprofit, but if we didn't have generational wealth in our family, we would not be sitting here looking as snazzy as we are, because, no, for real, what our forebears did well, and they passed it on generationally. And that's how most people do. America was built on two things: slavery and credit. And if you don't have access to credit, and when I say generational wealth, we got credit scores in our family that's through the roof. And we know how to demand that banks treat us well. And we probably should be teaching that. And I've thought about teaching it, because I've said in some classes that I've been invited to go to, and I left after about 10 minutes. These people don't know what they're talking about. It was run by a guy. He's a nice neighborhood organizer, but he's been on the slave ship his whole life. He works for government. When you work for government, you're on the slave ship. I haven't been on the slave ship in over 40 years. And my wife still teaches, but we're independent. We're businessmen. We're Black legal hustlers. Yeah. And that's what it's going to take, because
educating those on how to
and we're more than willing to show, and that's part of our mission. We've had a mission of helping people come out of incarceration, but that mission was based on helping them get their lives together. How can they turn their lives around, get a driver's license, do all the things necessary to become viable citizens, with the goal of starting their own business. Yeah. See, because the way corporate America is structured, and most of the new businesses are small businesses. And it would be nice if some black banks more black banks were to be created, but it'd be nicer if the banks that are already in existence were to treat people fairly. That's what Asheville sounds like they're trying to do. Do they have a fund where they're actually putting up the money? Or, there's a thing called the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act. Well, you're a banker. You know about the CRA. How is it that the CRA has been in existence since the 70s? And banks totally ignore it, and nobody says anything about it. Community Reinvestment Act means that you're supposed to reinvest in the communities where the money came from. Yeah. They take the money from the black community and won't reinvest it. It's called redlining. How do you attack those? Those are the kind of systemic changes that, and I understand, Erin, that you're more of a grassroots, boots on the ground level type of organization, at least at this point. But and God bless you for the work you do.
Absolutely.
But it's going to take changes in the systems of money.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. Because personally, I'm not interested in integration. See, the first thing they think is that you want to integrate with them. And that's what part of the resistance. It is. They think you want to move next door to them and marry their daughter. They do. I'm not interested in doing either one of those. Though I am an integrationist.
Yeah.
In my heart, and in my thinking, I'm an integrationist. I believe an integrated society is the best society. It's the most peaceful society. But I'm not going to make it solely up to me to cause integration. That was a mistake that blacks made in the 70s and 80s. It's still making now. They move out next door to a white person, white people move. I moved into a community, same community you live in. When I moved in there, it was 95% white. 3 years later, it was 95% black. And I never once saw a moving truck. I said, how did they move out? They must have the truth. They sneaking away. And so they moved to the next community over, and some blacks moved over there, and they moved again. So if integration is such a good thing, we have to wait till whites are ready to integrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Obviously we all want to imagine an anti-segregationist future where there's equity and we can coexist peacefully, but that's just not the reality right now. The reality is that white-bodied people, we're out here causing harm constantly, every day. And whether that harm is systemic or whether it's, microaggressions, investment in white businesses, the dismissal of, Black and Indigenous leadership, we're causing harm constantly. And so we really need to get our shit together, for lack of a better word, before we can talk about integration, because otherwise it's just harmful.
You're 100%. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And those kind of social issues are going to be the hardest to overcome. Yeah. And so I'm not pushing for social integration. I don't want to live next door to you. I just want the bank to give me a loan.
Right.
And if that comes later on, then because that social integration is happening anyway.
Right.
Thanks to Kim Kardashian. I mean, she's done more for integration than Martin Luther King. Let's be honest. And I've said it before. You go to small cities, go to Canton. See a white woman pushing a baby buggy down the street. Look in that baby buggy and tell me what color it's going to be. It's probably a 75% chance the baby's going to be brown. So that kind of integration is happening already.
Right.
And that was the fear from slavery, that you want to integrate. Well, that woman wasn't raped. She chose that. Yeah. So did Kim Kardashian. So those kind of things are going to happen. Once we get to a society where everybody's a nice brown color like you, then we'll have peace. But we're a ways away from that.
Yeah, we are. Erin, how can people get involved in what you do, for those who are interested?
So the easiest way to plug in is to go to the website. It's reparationsnowcleveland.com. If you're a non-Black or non-Indigenous person, the Take Action page is the one for you. And if you're someone coming to the organization to make a request, there's a request page as well that breaks down just a really simple form to tell us a little bit more. And then we go to work organizing around it, reach out, communicate. We're really transparent and available. So we can also be followed on Instagram, which is reparationsnow.cle.
Awesome.
So at your next event, if there's once the pandemic is over, we will gratis supply the wine for your event. How about that?
It'll be Chateau Huff only. Chateau Huff exclusive event.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for the work you do, Erin. We really appreciate it. And you're on the cutting edge of something that's very necessary in this country and our society. So therefore, you're going to take the arrows. You know that, but knowing you as I do, you're strong enough to take them. But you're going to take the hits. And God bless you for being strong enough to be able to do so.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much to both of you for having me. I'm armed and ready and look forward to our Chateau Huff exclusive.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Sunshine and Dad Show. Make sure you like and share and tag a family member or friend, and catch us next time, guys.
Mindfulness. What we talking about is mindfulness. Feel it in your spirit. Mindfulness.